Hi, I'm Steve from B&H Photo, and I'm here today with Larry Thorpe from Canon USA, and we're here to talk about the new Canon XF205. So Larry, tell me a little bit about the camera.
Well, this camcorder is the latest evolution of the XF series we launched in 2010. It sits between the 305 and the 105. We brought this in here with many more features.
And why don't you tell us a little something about the sensor?
It's a single sensor, Canon developed CMOS sensor, 1.284 inch, which means it's a little bigger than 1/3 inch. And that's because we needed some more photo sites. The primary image is made by 1920 by 1080 photo sites, but we have more as part of an image stabilization system.
So is that the electronic image stabilization?
Yes, but it works in combination with an IS shift optical stabilizer inside the lens, and the two together give us 5-axis control of stabilization, roll and shake, etc. So if you're doing an interview, running and walking, you'll have a stable image.
What about the lens?
Well, as you can see, it's a very short camcorder, but that's a 20-to-1 zoom lens, and it's very high optics. But what's also very powerful is we've added 3 rings for your zoom, your iris, and your focus. That was a request from many after the other camcorders we brought out. So it's the first time in a camcorder this size we've done anything like that.
So we've got 3 lens, zoom,
Yes.
iris, focus. And are they the mechanically linked?
They are infinitely rotatable, which means it's electronic control of each of those functions.
Right, because in a lens in a camera this size, you really couldn't have a mechanical zoom ring. The motors would just be too big.
Yes.
It's also nice because then you can't pin your lens and damage your lens.
Exactly.
It's a nice little side feature. So something else that I'm curious about the camera is all these connections on the back end here.
Well, that's a response to what we heard from broadcasters, documentarians, and others who want their HD SDI output. They have it. We also give them a 3G HDIS output. We have Genlock, timecode, an HDMI, and we've added an Ethernet LAN connector.
And the Ethernet, that's for pulling files out of the
That's
camera.
for pulling files out, proxy files out.
That's a great feature.
Yes.
When you're at post and after. But for the indie filmmaker, because this camera, what are the frame rates on this camera?
Frame rates, we'll talk about them when we get to recording. 60p, 30p, 24p, 60i in the case of the MPEG. We talk about that in a moment.
So we'll get to that in a second, but this is for the ENG, the broadcaster.
Yes.
Have you forgotten the independent filmmaker?
Not at all. We have another version of this coming. We call it an XF200. And there we strip out all of that connectivity. And that, because it's generally not needed. And of course, it does help us get the cost down. So we'll have 2 versions of this XF.
So if you're ENG based and you're going to do multiple cameras, XF205. If you're the independent filmmaker, I'm going 1 camera by myself, XF200 might just be the one for you.
Now, I mentioned the recording, the MPEG-2. That's done on 2 compact flash cards that go into the side here. You can do relay recording or parallel recording if you want backup. But in addition, we have another codec, and this one is MPEG-4 with an MP4 wrapper. I didn't mention that the MPEG-2 is an MXF wrapper, which broadcasters like. But the MP4 is recorded on an SD card in the bottom of the rear of the camcorder here. And you can be recording both simultaneously. So you can record the MPEG-2 and the MPEG-4.
So I can record the high quality 422 color sampling at 50 megabits and at the same time record lower data rate.
Well, you can also simultaneously record at 35 megabits per second in the MP4, 1920 by 1080, 60p, 1280 by 720, 60p.
1920 by 1080, 60p.
In the MP4.
And people
because that MPEG-4 is a more powerful compression system than the MPEG-2.
But the 1920 by 1080, that's at 60p. People have been screaming for that for a long time.
This is great for your slow-mo and sports capture, fast motion, etc.
And it does 24p?
It does 30p, 24p, and 60p.
So I wanted to touch up on the wireless. You can stream the proxy from this camera while shooting?
Yes. So if you want live viewing, we can go out on 2.4 gig or 5 gig, wirelessly out, Wi-Fi certified. So a tablet, your smartphone, you open the browser, you're now connecting, and those files are going to be brought in. You can be watching while you're recording. You can be watch live viewing.
So I can connect directly to the camera?
Yes.
With
Yes.
my mobile device or even a computer?
Yes, and you can use a tablet. We have an application where a tablet can give you remote control of the camera and recording from a tablet wirelessly.
That's a nice feature if I have to stick the camera on a remote.
Exactly, or on the end of a jib arm or something like that, yes.
And that avoids the whole big control box. And
Yes, and cables. Yeah.
That's a very, very exciting feature.
Yeah.
You were talking about the IR capabilities of this camera and how they relate to the XF105.
Yes, we have, again, like the 105, we have an IR emitter in here, but it's a new design, more powerful, about 2.7 times more light output than we had in the 105. So you can do a better illumination in a slightly larger area, and you can capture a full level signal, black and white, of course, because it's IR, in total darkness, investigative reporting or whatever, where you're in a difficult scene. The EVF is a larger panel, 0.45 inch instead of the traditional 0.24 inch, 1.23 megapixels. Over here we've an OLED, not an LCD, OLED, 3.5 inch, 1.23 megapixels. And of course, with being OLED, higher contrast, wider color gamut, much better reproduction of the scene you're shooting.
I wanted to mention briefly something that I'm looking at, which are the XLR inputs for audio.
Mm-hmm. 4 channels of audio recording here. Your XL inputs, you can put your microphone here, and if you might have something, the interviewer has something like I have here, you can pop that into the little connector there and you can record the 4 channels, individual audio controls on them.
So all manual audio
Yes.
controls, and for all 4 channels.
Yes.
There's another feature about the hand grip on this camera?
Yes, and that was a plea from both broadcasters and documentarians and filmmakers, and that is if you're shooting over a crowd, or you're shooting very low down, or you're shooting like this, you can rotate this handle 120 degrees in 15-degree steps to tailor the angle for your positioning of your arm. Very nice feature.
So I want to thank you for coming today and sharing with us this camera. It really seems to encompass the indie world and the broadcast world, and fits nicely into the kind of workflow that either one could be looking for.
Exactly.
So I'm Steve from B&H Photo with Larry Thorpe from Canon USA. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.